Good evening, all, and thank you very much for tuning in on the occasion of the 72nd Republic Day for India. Yes, this time we had the Republic Day parade, but unfortunately, we never had any foreign dignitaries coming to view the parade. But All India Runners' motivation, we have managed to get an interview of a foreign dignitary. She's a legend from South Africa. She is also Olympic medalist, a silver medalist for 10,000 meters in 1992, and also the breaker of world record four times for the half marathon. It gives me great pleasure and privilege to bring to our audience a legend from South Africa, and her name is Elana Meyer. Good
Hi,
evening.
hi, good evening or good afternoon from South Africa.
Yes, thank you so much for coming in. I know that you have a busy schedule, teaching and managing a company, but it's so nice of you on a weekday you're coming in. So thank you for that.
Absolute pleasure. I always love chatting athletics, so it's great to join you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Your name is quite famous. So when you Google it, we get three different profiles. One is an athlete, one is a bobsledder, one is a motorcycle driver. Does your name get confused often like that?
Not really in South Africa, but it's quite a coincidence. And I think the bobsleigh, we also share the same birthday. So
Okay.
it's really interesting. But in South Africa, not a lot of people, know of it. So so not a big problem.
Okay, fine. Because it took me a while to, I clicked on wrong profiles and I was watching and I was wondering why, where has Elana Meyer actually started doing bobsledding now? So that was like a learning experience for me when I clicked your name.
Yeah, luckily she is Elana Myers, the surname finishing with the S. So,
Yes, yeah.
so only one Elana Meyer that's run on the track.
Okay, thank you. So tell us a bit about yourself, and your journey into athletics it's like a movie story, So just tell us the audience about your childhood and your journey.
Yeah, so running wasn't my first love. I was born in the 60s, a teen, in my teens in the 70s, but coming from a very small town in South Africa, like a tiny village, really. And my first love was really gymnastics, so when 𝐷𝐼𝐴 𝐸𝐵𝐻, won multiple gold, she was only a few years older than me. And, and I absolutely fell in love with gymnastics, and I really wanted to, become a gymnast. But because I, came from such a small town, gymnastics wasn't really an option. There was no coaches, we didn't have the facilities, and then coincidentally, the school announced that we're going to have a fun run. And I think at that stage it was probably more the fun that attracted me than the run. But I anyway decided to sign up for the fun run. It was over 4 kilometers, and I did pretty well, So, and I also discovered that, I discovered my love for running. I grew up on a farm, and and it was just like, I loved the fact that I could go explore. When I out on a run, I love the fact that I could run as fast as I want to, or as far as I want to. So, so I think the freedom that running gave me as a young child, like really hooked me straight away. And till today, I'm still passionate. I still, get up in the morning and go for a run. It makes me a better person, I guess, today. I get rid of stress, and I get rid of, irritabilities, and just feeling better for the rest of the day.
Okay. You mentioned about the farm. I mean, I read that you have a family. You got four siblings or three siblings more. So were you racing against them? Were you the youngest or of them, or in the middle?
No, so I've got an older sister. She was more sort of the academic, one in the family. But then, it was me and 2 years younger, my brother, so I had great rivalry with him. And, and for many years, I could beat him. And then, when he turned about, I turned about 14 and he was 12, all of a sudden, like, I had to really sort of do my best to beat him. So, so I think, within our household, he certainly contributed to my training as a youngster. And then we also pulled in my younger little sister, and she also, joined the group. So we had fantastic, training runs, wherever we were, going on holiday, we would make time to train. So the siblings certainly contributed to, I think, to a good competitive spirit, and good fitness.
Okay. I mean, it is said that running is a way of life in South Africa. I mean, is it still the same now?
Yes, absolutely. I think running is still very popular. It's for many people, they follow the big ultra marathon, Comrades Marathon, as youngsters, and and ultimately think that it is something that they will do. But I think nowadays, I don't know if you're familiar with park run in India,
Yes.
but the park run is very, very popular, and and almost has become a cult. So we have over 1 million park runners that signed up. Unfortunately, COVID put a little bit of a stop to to all the socializing around running. But you see people, even this morning when I went for a run, 5:30 a.m. There was plenty of people running in the mountain, taking their dogs for a run. So it's certainly, it's a way of life, a way of keeping fit, a way of embracing life. And I'm very privileged that it's still part of my daily routine.
Okay. Bruce mentioned about park run. Unfortunately, in India, we do not have enough parks to run. So, because of the population
Yes,
and the way the cities are designed, but we hope that one day it will come. And Bruce said that he can help us. So it was
yes.
nice of him to do that. So,
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic, it really is a fantastic initiative, and especially for for first time runners, it's a safe place to to step up and to run a 5 kilometers, and you're doing it with people, and you're getting measured against yourself. So so really a fantastic initiative.
okay. You mentioned about the fact that by the age of 14, it took you a while to beat your brother, but the fact is that you won your first race, the half marathon, the Foot of Africa, the race at the age of 13, and you did extremely well with a time of 87.10. How did you train? Because age of 13, no child would consider to run 21 kilometers, which is like too long for a child at that age. How did you manage?
So I think it was never really sort of like a race that I planned to do. I didn't really have a coach at that stage. So our next door neighbor on the farm, was also running recreationally, and he said, but and he told me about this fantastic race, and if I don't want to come and join him, so so it wasn't that I was really well prepared for the race, but it was the introduction. I think the furthest that I've run before that was maybe 10 kilometers. But I thought, if he can do it, I can do it. It was a very popular race of that era. And my father said he will take me to the race. But rugby is a very important sport in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it was our Currie Cup final. It was like the biggest rugby final in South Africa on the same day. So my dad said to me, he will take me, but I must please not take the whole day to run, because he still wanted to watch the rugby match. And I suppose like that really encouraged me not to hold him up. And and somehow like the race, it was also a very hilly course, so it was like
Okay.
big hills up and big hills down, and when I entered, and it was like a point-to-point race where you start in the one town, Napier, and then you finished in another town. And when I entered the town, nobody has passed me. So, I went on to win my first, my first race. But certainly not something that you recommend to youngsters. Only after that I got a coach, Charlie Farson, and then he moved me back into running on the track, running over 800 meters, 1500 meters, and I didn't race on the road, for the remainder of my high school career. So, but certainly, it introduced me, firsthand to running on the road. I also met, that day I met a very famous South African that won the men's marathon. And I just thought, one day when I'm a big girl, I also want to run marathons. So,
Okay.
So it certainly was a very important, event for me. Not necessarily the right way to start your running career, but certainly, it inspired me to run the half marathon, a marathon, and a very important race.
It's amazing that at the age of 13 you could think of. So, what was your dad's reaction? When you won the race and got your medal. What did he say?
Yeah, he was blown away. He was very happy. And I think, but more important was that he didn't miss the rugby match. So, unfortunately, our province didn't win on that day. So I think at least I put a highlight on the day, while we were not winning the rugby match.
Okay. What was your brother's reaction? Because the whom used to always be very competitive with him. At the dinner table, it would have been an interesting conversation, right?
Yes, so my other siblings were playing other sports on that day. So, they were doing rugby and netball, and, that's why, my dad, said he will take me. But, certainly, he was one of my, biggest, training partners at that stage, and certainly, helped me to be competitive.
Okay. That's nice. You spoke about your coach, Charlie Farson. Just tell us a bit about him and what were the things you learned from him?
So after winning the half marathon, a lot of coaches called my parents and said, it's not the appropriate thing to do. And, then the next year I went to boarding school and to a place, 2 hours from my hometown called Robertson. And, and Charlie Farson was the coach there. And he was a very successful high school coach, coached many runners to national medals and national records. So I knew that I will be in good hands to join a coach like him. His philosophy was very different. It was, to the things that I knew, up to then. So he said, no, as a youngster, you must get as fast as possible on the track. You must get as strong through cross country, and the longer distances, you only move up to that over a period of time. I think what was more important for me at that stage, I was a high school girl, was also the fact that he really coached me as a full person. He supported me from from my school and academic side, and show as much interest in all of the aspects of your life. So it wasn't only about me as an athlete, it was really about me as a person and, what are the best things to do, So he gave me a fantastic foundation for running. And certainly, I couldn't have asked for a better start for my running career. He provided the foundation that I could really build on over the next 10, 20 years to be able to later on win an Olympic medal. And I think he also, he was a no-nonsense coach. Sometimes, when athletes start complaining and say they're tired or they're nauseous, he will just say but just vomit, get over it, let's go on. So So he wasn't, he didn't sweat the small stuff. He was a good planner. He planned. He introduced me to planning your race. Um, to set clear goals. How to break it down. What do you need to run? Over 100 or 400 to achieve your goals. So certainly, great influence in my life, and somebody that I really salute for what he contributed.
Okay, wonderful. So, no, that's so nice about him. But was it? Did it? So you actually won a half marathon, and suddenly you went to the boarding school where the coach said, "Sorry, Elana, you cannot run half marathons. You have to do 400 meters, 800 meters, 1,500 meters." Was it difficult for you to scale down from your heroics in half marathon to come to smaller distances?
It was actually, I think, I remember how sore I was. My muscles were really sore after the half marathon. I wasn't really well prepared. And he just had such a good track record. He coached so many athletes to national, to win national medals, to be, the number one in the country. So I knew, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I trusted his guidance, and I think, thinking back, I know, running a half marathon, that would not have been the right direction, to go. I think it's just running on the road so far is so hard on your body, and when you're 13, you're definitely not strong enough to handle that over a long period of time. So
Okay.
So putting me back into the onto the track, onto running 800, 1500 cross country, gave me the opportunity to, to develop my speed. It gave me the opportunity to work on my strength through the cross country, and, and created the platform for a long career. I think, should I not have done that and went down the road of continuing with the half marathon, I can't see that, that I would have had the same, quality of career.
Okay. So before I ask you the next question, I just wanted to let you know that we have got athletes and runners from all over India who is conveying their hellos to you from the north, east, west, and south. But we have a very special person out here, and I'll just read what she has written. I'll just post it also for you. Yes, she says that, "Hi, I'm Elana Alfonso. She is a daughter of a former national record holder, Lilama, and at 3,000, 5,000, and 10,000 meters. She is listening to you. She said, "My parents named me after you, seeing your
Oh,
performance
wow.
at the world level in 1998." So
Oh,
if you want
wow.
to say hello to Elana, from Elana to Elana, you can do that.
Hello, Ilana from India. I'm Ilana from Africa. It's fantastic to meet you. And, it's I would love to see you in person, but unfortunately, I just get a little, like a little icon there. So, I hope you share and your father's, passion for running. And nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. I'm sure you would have made her day. We have got two coaches who are. I think we've got three coaches who are athletic coaches who are listening to you. I just wanted to tell their names. We've got one Mr. Prabhakar Rao, who is also a middle distance runner, but he is also into coaching. And we've got another former athlete from India, Simon D'Souza. So all those people are listening to you. So I just wanted to convey their regards to you from our side.
Oh, thank you very much. Very special.
Okay. So after Charles, you had your coach for a very long time, Mr. Peter Labuschagne, and who actually guided you into a lot of all the world championship medals. Just tell us, how was he different as compared to Charles, and what did he do to develop your techniques and speed, which helped you to win all those medals?
Yeah, so when I graduated high school, I moved to Stellenbosch, where I pursued my, where I went to the university, so did not have the opportunity to still, be in the group of my school coach. and then, I also met Pieter Labuschagne, which was at that time also the coach of Zola Butt. So he had the opportunity to gain valuable international experience, coaching Zola, already for the 1984 Olympics, to compete for Great Britain and, compete in Grand Prix meetings at that stage. So, so he was, a fantastic international experience, which, at that stage, it's, South Africa was very, new to, or at that stage, we were actually not even competing internationally, but I knew this is the man, he's got international experience, to build on the foundation that Charles Farson laid, during my school years and my initial running years.
Okay. So you were running at a time, when South Africa was not allowed to participate in international events. I think you ran for almost a decade, doing that, and suddenly, you were allowed to, participate. But during those times when you were not allowed to participate, how did you manage to keep up your enthusiasm and still bring in world-class timings later? What were you saying to yourself?
Yeah, I think, obviously the initial years, I was, Zola Butt is, she's my peer. We both born in 1966, so I competed against Zola, since I was a really young girl. Zola was a world-class athlete from a very young age, and, and she beat me by big margins as a youngster. So for the initial years, I had a world-class competitor, to inspire me and uplift me in the races. And then when she left in 1984, because, she had the opportunity to compete for Great Britain in the Olympics, that left, a hole, in South African athletics. But I, and I also qualified to go to the 1984 Olympic Games and 1988. So, but throughout that period, like I was really focusing on, on trying to improve my running times. I was also setting my sights on, on the international athletes. You've, I know you've interviewed 𝐈𝐧𝐿 on your show before. So even though I was running and training in South Africa, I knew, about 𝐈𝐧𝐿. I knew her times, and the rivalry started for me. I couldn't race against her in a track meeting, but, I raced against her on paper. So I wanted to beat her times, even in South Africa where, where we didn't have the opportunity to run internationally. So I think I changed my mindset to not only trying to be the best runner in South Africa, but to start competing against my rivals abroad, even though, I didn't have the opportunity to run physical races against them.
Okay. And you waited 8 years or 8 to 10 years to get into that.
Yeah.
It's amazing that, you actually kept yourself motivated looking at other athletes' times, especially 𝐈𝐧𝐿 times, for a decade. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, it takes a lot of inner desire to stay motivated, because I'm sure anybody else in your position would have been doing something else. So hats off to you for that.
Yeah, I think, what was really good during that period in South Africa, athletics was very, very popular. We had, fantastic track meetings that was covered live on television. The stadiums were packed. So it was really a popular sport. And it received mainstream support. It was a sponsored. There was a lot of sponsors in the event, in the sport, and I think that certainly helped. We had fantastic track meetings, and even though we couldn't compete internationally, the sport was very healthy, in South Africa.
So you're not short of any races at that time?
No, at that time we really had, great, and also, there was a lot of fans, in the sport, because all the events were televised live, so people knew the athletes. When you bump into, people on the street, they would recognize you. So, so running a track and field was a big sport. I think today, the different sports, there's just so many different type of sports. All of that, has been televised. So track and field almost, disappear, in the mass of, of different sports.
Okay. So, who, in your opinion, were the athletes and who could have won medals in with in international meets, but missed the bus due to the policy of the international athletic committees?
Yeah, I think we had really great athletes in the 80s, early 90s, 70s, that just never had the opportunity to compete or represent South Africa. We had, and they, across the board, we had white, black runners that, all missed the boat. If I think back, Johan Fourie, certainly was one of those athletes that, that could have run really well on the international circuit, and he just totally missed the boat. The time when we got accepted back internationally, he was really at the end of his career, and he ran a few races. Then Matthew Stamani, that ran a 60 half marathon, during those years, was another example of just a truly great, and probably could have been a rock star, if they had the opportunity to compete internationally. We had good sprinters, so it really is, it's sad that, those athletes never had the opportunity to compete internationally. But, I also think that, athletics has always been, part of, the politics, and you, as much as you don't want it, but you can't separate the two. And, sport has always been used as, also as a political tool.
Okay. You spoke about international athletes. We do have Mr. Douglas Wakihuri, all the way from Kenya, who is saying Jambo Elana. He is watching it.
Yes. Well, we've run many races together, so fantastic for popping in.
Well, he is also a rock star in real life, so he has got a lot of albums in his name.
Yeah, absolutely. Ran many races in Japan.
Yes, I mean, he sings in Japanese, so that makes him a all-round rock star, not only a runner. So so you said that you were motivated, but you also were extremely, I would say, if you're a daughter to an Indian parent, they would have been extremely proud of you because you were very good in your studies, and you managed degrees, you got honor degrees and masters. Like that is what from our country, like children has to be like that. They have to be good in everything. And I think you were good in in managing studies and training. How did you manage your time during those times?
I think during that era, obviously I think my first dream was always to go to the Olympics. The studies was always like almost secondary to that. But because we did not have those opportunities, when I started studying, in 1985, I knew I have to, go and get my degree. But then I was also very aware of the fact that, should I, start, entering the workforce, I will probably, will not, stay at the sport of athletics, because that will be the start of a whole new era for me, So, and I think, then I just decided to continue studying, so at least I managed to, to pass all my, all my years, and I got my degree and my honors degree, and I, fitted in, teaching a diploma, and then I started with my master's degree, and, and then, at last the athletic world opened up for us. Today, I'm very thankful that I, that I did it the way that, in the 80s, because, I'm a firm believer that, you have to, work on holistic athlete development. You're an athlete, but you must also think, to be successful, long past your running career, because there's very few athletes, even on the highest level, that become Olympic champions or Olympic medalists that will have sustainability for life. So I'm a firm believer that that you have to look at your life from a broader perspective than just being an athlete. And I think you don't necessarily think like that when you are 20 and you feel young and unbeatable, but certainly at the end of your running career you will be very thankful that you have got a good qualification to to actually utilize your your performance and your achievements in the sport even in a better way.
That's wonderfully said. I think a lot of athletes miss that aspect of life, and they gave everything to athletics, and hopefully they will be successful. But when they are retired from the sport, they do not have anything else to look back to, or something to to take care of them. Like Liz McColgan, she says that as soon as I started winning money, I started buying properties. So she became a property, real estate magnate. But she also has done coaching and other things, and now she's a coach. But it's
Yeah.
amazing. A lot of athletes actually miss that part of life when they are training.
Yeah, and I think it also creates purpose for life after sport, because I know a lot of very successful sports men and women post career are struggling with making the transition, and suffer depression and suffer being purposeless. So I think it certainly helped in terms of a long term success. And and part of my work and my job at my academy is to not to only look at sports performance, but to also put pathways in place to develop to develop broader careers for athletes.
Wonderful. That's a nice thing to do. And I'm sure all the athletes under you would be extremely happy and thankful to you at the later part of life. So, my next question is a question which you have been asked for the past 20 to 30 years. Let's say at least 20 years. The 1992 Olympics silver medal, the first athlete after after the re-entry of South Africa into Olympics to win a medal. Tell us a bit about that race, and what was the reception for you when you came back from the race?
Yeah, it was it certainly was something that I will never forget. I think it was a very turbulent it was a very turbulent period for us, and with lots of uncertainties, and I didn't know till I was walking onto the track that that it's real, I've got the opportunity. Because back in South Africa that year we had a lot of turbulence. So walking onto the Olympic track, I almost had to pinch myself to remind me that it's true, and I have the opportunity to compete in the Olympic Games, and I have the opportunity to represent my country.
Okay.
And then that year we also had we had a heat for the 10,000 meters. So you run 25 laps, and then you have to qualify for the final, which is another 25. So so I was, having strategies, for the final. I had a plan A, plan B, plan C. I knew, Liz McColgan was the champion of the world the year before in 1991. I know Lynn James was winning the world cross country championships. And I also saw Lerata Tulu, winning the African champs in a blistering last lap. So, at the end of my event, be able to walk away with a medal, it certainly meant gold to me. The color was silver, but because of the long wait, the long journey, all the uncertainties, the patience, it really meant gold to me. And I think, even today, a lot of people, they remember actually the 26th lap. when we did a victory lap. Myself and Dorota Tulu ran around the track. So till today, it certainly has been the most emotional event for me, because there was just so much anticipation. There was so much uncertainties. It was something that I wanted for so many years, and it took so long to get there. So that day certainly changed my life in many, many ways.
So how was the reception, at when you came back to, I'm sure you would have landed in Durban or Cape Town, at the airport. How was it when you came
Yeah,
back
so it was,
to South Africa?
so it was unbelievable. I think, and also to remember, it was even, before we had the election. So it was 2 years prior to 1990 to 94 when, the ANC took over. And so coming back, just the way that, I was received by every single South African was absolutely unbelievable. Until today, a lot of people will still stop me and remind me where they were when the race was on. So it was unbelievable. And especially in those times, the support and acceptance from South Africans from across the board.
Okay, wonderful. So, if you want to give tips to tips from Elana for any professional athletes on what it takes to win a medal at the Olympics, say around 5 tips, what would those 5 tips be?
Yeah, I think probably the most important one is to stick to your sport for long enough. I think often young athletes think that they will achieve success over a much shorter period, but the investment is really long term, and there's many examples that you can use. So stay in the sport, stick to the sport, and if you use Dame Kelly Holmes, double gold, in the Olympics, she won those medals at the age of 35. If she quitted 1 year ago at the age of 34, she would have never won it. So so my first tip would just be, remember, it is a long-term investment. It's a long-term, there's not an elevator to success. You have to take the stairs, and it's quite a high staircase. And then obviously also to for athletes to know that there's always a lot of uncertainties. I think now this year with with Corona, COVID, there's even more. But to stick to to do what you need to do every day, and not to to get distracted by by the current circumstances. To know what you need to do to ultimately achieve your goal, to win the medal, to win the race, to bring back gold, and just to, doesn't matter what the circumstances are day after day.
Okay.
And then there's always surprises, and I think so you need to be able to adapt and to to plan for for different circumstances. And I think that was one of the things that I've learned as a as an athlete stepping up into the international arena. If you have to prepare for a Olympic Games in Tokyo, it's hot, it's humid, and you need to be able to adapt to circumstances. And then ultimately, to have fun. It's like, if you choose, this as your life path, as is to have as much fun doing it. Surely it's hard work. Surely it takes a lot of time. But make sure, you make good friends, and have fun while you do it.
Okay. What sacrifices does it take to become a champion then?
I think it's, it certainly, it doesn't come without sacrifices. I think, almost, when I look back at my career, you have to look and, be 100% at so many different components. amount of sleep that you get, the quality of sleep, the amount of fluids, water, your nutrition, your recovery, so there's just so many different aspects that, you have to do as perfect as possible to be in a position to achieve your best and be competitive at the highest level. And that will, obviously requires from you to often also say no, and not to, to do things that's maybe risky and, appealing, and I think, thinking back of my own career, there was a lot of things that I didn't do as a professional athlete, because I knew, that, by doing that, it's just too risky. And, you've got a short career span as an athlete, and if you don't use it now, you're going to lose it. And there's a lot of things that I postponed till when I retired from the sport. So I think success on the highest level, will never come without sacrifices and commitment over a period of time.
Okay. That's such a nice bit of advice, about wanting to become a medalist and world class athlete, and coming from you, and I'm sure it would help a lot many athletes who are listening to it. During a training, did you do anything crazy? Like, for example, Liz McColgan said she used to train in a steam room for the race in Japan. She trained in a steam room. Was there anything like that which you did? Anything different to put additional pressure onto yourself while training?
Yeah, I think like obviously preparing for hot conditions, like certainly crazy things like that help. I think some of the crazy things that we did as athletes, in the years of isolation, I once ran a mile in a mine, like almost like 800 meters down, in a mine. With a headlamp, and so we did all crazy things to keep the sport alive and to keep it interesting, during the period of isolation, and we didn't compete we couldn't compete against international athletes. So so certainly, I think my career was filled with a lot of interesting stories, and I think that can probably be a chapter of its own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if a book comes out, we would be willing to read about it. So I hope it comes sometime soon. Is there anything like that in pipeline? A book about your life?
Yeah, no, like I think I'm still writing some of the chapters. So, and books, it's also, I think nowadays with all the, opportunities through social media and, all different platforms, I don't necessarily think, it needs to be in the form of a book. But, I do believe that, I've been privileged. My life has had a lot of different chapters, some on the competitive arena, some post career, and and I'm still, still running that last lap.
Okay, and I think a book should not come out. A movie should be made, and that would be a better option than writing a book, actually. So or write the book and sell the rights to the person making the movie. So you are traditionally known as a front runner. It's like it's said that Elana, after 1,500 meters, takes off like she has some rocket fuel inside her body. So just tell us about the strategy. How does that help to be a front runner
Yeah,
and not follow the pack?
yeah, so I think my philosophy was always, if somebody wants to beat me, it's going to be damn hard. So I made sure that the pace is hard and honest. So and that was, it was also my strength that that I could manage a hard pace, throughout the race. I also, like practice it in training, to be able to accelerate off a hard pace, during the race. And I think that is exactly what I did during the Olympics. With 10 laps to go, I accelerated, and I made a gap that only Dorata Tulu could close. So so it's certainly a strategy that worked for me. I won most of the races. Running people off their feet. So athletes knew if I was in the race, it's going to be a hard race.
That's how people were scared of you as a competitor.
Yes, so I never made it an easy race. So if you want to beat me, you will have to work really hard to achieve that.
Okay. So majority of your wins actually came between 1992 to 99. What helped you to peak during that time? Were you doing the same things, or did you make any changes to your diet or training schedules?
I think, obviously, coming from school, I had a good foundation, training with my school coach. But really the next phase, I managed to train with a really strong training group, which certainly helped. I was training in a mixed group, and there was a lot of male athletes that, helped me to train harder and achieve better times in training. I think also, with a foundation of 7 or 10 years of good solid training, I just had unbelievable consistency. So with that, I managed to take the performances up to a new level. And I think you also, you lean down a little bit as an athlete. You gain strength. I started doing like really hard sessions in the gym, in my mid-20s. So I became a stronger athlete. So now all of those things, I think in combination contributed to the fact that I could improve, year after year. And I think, even at the age of 35, I ran my best 10 kilometers on the road. So I think if you, as an athlete, take good care of your body, you make sure you invest in, good recovery, good nutrition, that all helps to be able to have the longevity of a successful career. And I think, that was it was probably my greatest benefit, was the fact that I had really good, consistent training for many years. And that resulted in huge improvements.
Okay. I mean, you have ran all types of races, ranging from 1,500 to a full marathon. But the half marathon seems to be your eternal favorite. I mean, you have come back again and again every time you are stepping into the track or into the road for a half marathon. You seem to be breaking a world record. I mean, why is that event such a big favorite of yours?
Yeah, I think, like there's probably many reasons, but, I absolutely loved the distance, because it was like short enough not to, have to worry too much about, your nutritional intake during the race. Where in the marathon, all of a sudden, the nutrition you take in the race, becomes, plays a much bigger role. And where in the marathon you needed to have more patience than in the half marathon. The half marathon, it just felt like, it was my distance. I could go out and race from the start, where, often in the marathon, I thought like you have to be calm over the first half, and then, like work harder over the next half. So it was more a race of patience than the half marathon. So I think it was my perfect distance. I think everybody has got their sweet spot. And for me, the half marathon was the sweet spot. And maybe it's also got something to do, of running the distance at the age of 13. So I just felt like, this is my distance.
Okay. I mean, yeah, the first win was a half marathon, so I think that is always in the
Yeah.
back of your mind. But you have done extremely well in marathon too. I mean, you got some great times, world class times for the full distance also, and you were a podium finisher in Boston and Chicago. So was the training any different for you when you look at the marathon and the full marathon, or when you look at your previous training and for training for the marathon? Was there any huge difference for you?
Yes, I think obviously you need to increase your distance, and the harder, the longer, really harder sessions. That was sort of the most difficult component of my training. So I think I ran pretty good marathons, but always that's the one distance where I thought I probably could have run a little bit faster. Where in all the other distances, I thought like I've pretty much achieved my potential, achieved my max. But in the marathon, I somehow thought that I will be able to execute a 2:20, which never happened. But at the end of my career, I've got no regrets. I think I had a fun career. I traveled the world. I made some amazing friends all over the world. And, when I look back today, I feel really thankful, full of gratitude, that I had the opportunity to compete for so many years, not only in South Africa, but internationally. And, and certainly no regrets.
Okay. So we have heard a lot about you as an athlete. Tell us a bit about Elana as a coach and your organization, EnduroCAD.
Yes. So I'm not, EnduroCAD it's an organization that I founded with one of my, co-runners, Janet Wellham, back in 2013, really to support and develop young, talented athletes, with a dual focus, to invest in the development of athletes from athletics side, but then also, from a career path development side. So in my organization, I have coaches, we've got also, trainers that invest in the career development of athletes, so that it really is a holistic program, and athletes going through my academy, realize the importance of not only achieving your objectives as an athlete, but to also put, career path steps in place, to be successful, long term and, post career. So I've got some really good coaches that's part of the academy. I've got some mentors, some specialists in terms of, strength training, nutrition, psychological preparation, mental toughness. So really looking at an athlete from a 360 perspective, and, and invest in the holistic development of individuals.
Wonderful. Do you coach now, Elana, or are you just the part of the board?
Yeah, no. So I'm not a coach. My portfolio in the organization, is to bring in, the sponsors, the funders, to compile the whole program where, coaches is one of the components. So, so I'm also a mother of 2 young children. My boy is 13 years old and going to high school now. Got a daughter of 10 years old. So really trying to keep all the balls in the air, and, and give, great coaches the opportunity to coach through my organization.
Okay. Apart from EnduroCAD, you're also the face and brand ambassador of a very famous marathon, which has found a lot of liking in India, the Cape Town Marathon. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So as an athlete, back in the 80s, 90s, I never had the opportunity to run a marathon, in South Africa or, on the African continent. To run a marathon, I always had to travel to Boston, to New York, to London, to Chicago, to Tokyo. So back in 2012, myself and Francois Pinard, the iconic rugby player, and Janet, co-founder of EnduroCAD, we got together and just say, Cape Town should have an iconic marathon, and we took over the organization of the Cape Town Marathon, and we grew it over the last 7 years from a small city marathon with 1,000 runners to, 2 years ago we had 25,000 runners.
Wow.
It's a gold label event endorsed by World Athletics. And the dream is to make it Africa's major. I believe that all the best runners come from the African continent, and still we do not have a marathon that's part of the World Marathon Majors from Africa. So so our dreams is to build the event, to continue to build the event over the next couple of years. And I would like to invite all the runners from India. I know that over the last 2 years there's been some great interest. Hopefully things will change and we will be able to host the marathon in its traditional format, where we can have thousands and thousands and thousands of runners from all over the world flocking to Cape Town, to be part of Africa's only gold label event. It's a beautiful city. There's lots to do, and it will certainly be a great experience. So really would like to invite all people from your country to join us.
I'm sure they would, because South Africa is very dear to India for historical reasons. And yes, the Comrades Marathon always has got a lot of interest in India, where people travel a lot, spending a lot, and also travel in big batches. I think we had the participation, I think around 200 to 300 runners in
Wow.
2019 for the Comrades Marathon. Um, but you are not a big, even though it is from South Africa, but you feel that a lot of runners, young runners, are moving towards ultras, and that does not mean that it's only in South Africa, but it's in many countries. And you're not a big fan of those ultras. Why do you think people are doing that?
I think, obviously in South Africa, the Comrades Marathon, is an iconic race. It's almost 100 years old. It's got an incredible story behind it. And, it's on television for almost 11 hours or 12 hours. So when you watch it, when you sit in front of the TV and watching people running 90 kilometers, it certainly touches your heart and your soul, and you see the guts that people display when they do it, and it inspires people to get off the couch and to try it and to see if that person can do it. I think I can also do it, and it really creates a lot of inspiration. And I think for many people, there's nothing more radical that you can do than running 90 kilometers. So so if you're a talented athlete, you can maybe go to the Olympics. But for the everyday runner that has got a full-time job, has got kids to look after, what more radical can you do than running 2 back-to-back marathons, and conquer the distance? So so I certainly think there's great inspiration that comes through the Comrades Marathon. And certainly something that it has inspired many South Africans and many people from all over the world, over many generations, to start running, to pick up the sport of running, and to then, ultimately conquer the ultimate human race, the Comrades Marathon.
Okay. Thank you for the answer, Elana. We are getting close to 1 hour of our interview, so I would ask my final question to you. I don't want to hold you back. So the final advice to all the athletes, if they, on how to become another Elana.
Oh, I think there's, nowadays there's athletes that's faster than me, that's stronger than me, but ultimately you need the passion. I think if you don't have the passion and the internal drive and fire inside you, it will be very hard to achieve your biggest dreams. So I would say follow your heart. If running is not your thing, find what it is, and then realize that ultimately there's no instant way of achieving success. It really is a long-term investment. Stick to your dream, work hard for it over many years, and you will become the person that you want to, and achieve the dreams that you want to. So yeah, so ultimately it's passion and perseverance that sums it up for me.
Okay. So thank you very much, Elana. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and all the people who are listening to you also have loved. You got a lot of comments coming in, saying that you're very passionate and you're proved, with your world class records. So it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I will just request you to just be in the studio for a few more minutes. I'll just thank my audience, and then I wish that people would get inspired by this interview, and hopefully we will have some athlete in India winning an Olympic medal. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your show. Thank you for your fantastic preparation and your knowledge, and your passion. And I'm sure that you are inspiring, a whole generation of runners back in India. So thank you very
Thank
much for the opportunity.
thank you, Elana. Just be in the studio. I'll just come and talk to you. So thank you very much for tuning in on Republic Day, 72nd Republic Day of our country, India. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, talking to Elana. And a lot of things she has said, I'm sure if you follow, we are just, few years or months away from producing our first Olympic medal winning athlete. So thank you very much. This month is not over, and as promised to you, yes, world-class athletes coming to our show for this month. We'll be closing this month. My last interview would be at the end of this month. We call him the daddy of steeplechase, Mr. Moses Kipchoge, who has agreed to come for an interview. He is a phenomenal athlete, and is I would say that nothing better to close our month for January. So looking forward to hearing from you, and do send your love and send messages to the Facebook page, and looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, and have a good night. Thank you.